Okay, today we are going to be talking about the scientific method. Since it's your first set of notes, I'm just going to remind you, if I don't say pause the slide and take these notes down, you're not taking them down. And remember also, you're not taking notes down on a slide unless it says objective there. Okay? All right, so we are going to start with the scientific method. The scientific method is a series of steps, a procedure that scientists follow in order to answer some type of problem or some type of question that they have. Okay, there's 5 main steps of the scientific method. The first one is that they need to ask a question. You need to have a problem, some kind of question that needs to be answered, and scientists get their questions from making observations of their surroundings, not just what they see, in everyday life, but also if they're working on another project, something might happen and they're wondering, why did that happen? So then they're trying to figure out the answer to that question. The second step is that a scientist will form a hypothesis. A hypothesis is an educated guess that can be tested. Okay, it's different from a prediction because a prediction is just an educated guess. You can predict the weather, but you can't make a hypothesis about the weather. Okay, a hypothesis is an educated guess that can be tested. Okay, and it's always written as an if-then statement, and we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. The third step is to test your hypothesis and collect your data. So that's your experiment. You're setting up some type of experiment to see what's going to happen. So you're collecting data, all your observations, anything you can see, hear, taste, smell, touch, measurements, anything, any kind of data that's occurring while you are conducting your experiment. Okay, that's step 3. Step 4 is then to take that data from your step 3 and to analyze it. You put it into charts, you put it into graphs, some type of data table so that you can look at it and easily decide what happened here, what conclusions can I draw. You're analyzing it, you're looking to see what is the answer. And finally, from analyzing your data, you're going to form your conclusions. Decide the answer to your question. Figure out, was your hypothesis correct and incorrect? And remember, it's okay to have an incorrect hypothesis. That's just going to create more questions. Then the scientist is going to start all over again with that new question and go through the scientific method again and again and again. Okay? So going back to the beginning, step 1 is ask a question. Step 2, form a hypothesis. Step 3, test your hypothesis and collect your data. Step 4, analyze your data. And step 5 is to form a conclusion. Okay, this is the first slide where you are going to take notes. It's objective 2. I can describe each step in the scientific method. This is what we just went over. So go ahead and pause the video and get these notes down. Okay, digging a little deeper as we go into the specific parts of the scientific method. In order to write a hypothesis, we need to be able to identify the variables. A variable is anything that can change in an experiment. We're going to talk about 2 main types. The first type is an independent variable. We call that the I control variable because that is the thing that the scientist is testing. Okay, the thing the scientist is changing. They want to see what's the outcome if I change this. That's your independent variable. Okay? The other variable is called a dependent variable because it depends on what you do to the independent variable. The dependent variable is the thing that you measure. So the independent variable is the thing that you change. The dependent variable is the thing that you measure. Okay? All right, go ahead and pause this slide and take down your objective 3 notes. When you're writing your hypothesis, and we're going to get that in just the next slide, your hypothesis can tell you what your variables are. Okay, so your independent variable, the thing that you're changing. So here's your example. If I drink Mountain Dew before bed, you, the scientist, are deciding to drink Mountain Dew. That's the cause, and the effect is going to be that you will not sleep very much. So that's your dependent variable. It's dependent on drinking Mountain Dew or not. Okay, so if you don't drink Mountain Dew, then maybe you'll sleep better. So look at this hypothesis. Remember, I said it needed to be written as an if-then statement. So if I drink Mountain Dew before bed, then I will not sleep very much. Okay? Moving on. I want you to try to write or to identify the independent and dependent variables in this hypothesis. If I leave the lights on all day, then my electric bill will be expensive. What is the thing the scientist here is controlling, and what is going to happen because of that? What's being measured? Pause this slide, write your answer down, write the hypothesis down, your independent and dependent variable in your notes. Okay, moving on to the actual hypothesis. This is our second step in our scientific method, is writing a good hypothesis. And here's your objective 4. I can write a hypothesis using an if-then statement and using the words increase and decrease. Remember, a hypothesis, again, is an educated guess that can be tested. Okay? It's an if-then statement. So here's an example. The amount of your independent variable, the thing the scientist changes, is the amount of food they're going to give their cat. The dependent variable, what's dependent on the amount of food that they give, is the weight of the cat. So if you look at the bottom, if I increase the amount of food I give my cat, then her weight will increase. Notice that I used the words increase there. You can also change it. If I decrease the amount of food I give my cat, then her weight will decrease. And maybe you think if you increase the amount of food you give your cat, then her weight will decrease. Either way, all of those hypotheses are correct. A hypothesis can never be wrong. It can be proven incorrect, but that just means that you might need to do another experiment. And it's okay to have a wrong hypothesis. We're not going to go back and change our hypothesis. We're just going to say, oh, my data did not support my hypothesis, and that's it. Okay, so go ahead and pause this slide, write down objective 4 and all the notes underneath it, and then you can move on. Controls and constants, extremely important in an experiment. Okay, this is objective 5. I can define and identify constants and controls in the experiment. A constant, the key word for a constant is same. Anything that stays the same throughout the experiment. Okay, so for example, if you are doing an experiment with plants and you want to know if Miracle-Gro will make the plants grow bigger, then you need to have all of the plants in the same location, getting the same amount of sun. You need to make sure they're getting the same amount of water, and the only thing that you're changing is your independent variable. Everything else should be a constant. Okay, the other word is control. It's the part of the experiment that the scientist doesn't change or add the variable to. So if we're doing that same Miracle-Gro test, we need to have a plant that you don't add Miracle-Gro to so that you have something to compare to. So it is the part that we are comparing to see if our experiment worked or not. Okay, constant and control. Pause this slide, write down your notes for objective 5 in your notebook. Okay, and this is our last objective for today. It's objective 6. I can define observation and inference and make observations and inferences about an event. An observation is using your 5 senses to collect data about your surroundings. So anything you can see, hear, taste, smell, or touch is an observation. An inference is when you make an assumption or prediction about something that you observe. After you make an observation, you usually make an inference about what's going on. So, for example, if the phone rings and it's the office and they want Johnny to go down to the office, your observation is that the phone rang because you heard it, and then you heard the teacher tell Johnny to go to the office. So those are your observations. The inferences that you might make from that is that Johnny's mom's here to pick him up, or Johnny got in trouble, or Johnny forgot something at home and his mom brought it in. Lots of things, lots of inferences can be made from one single observation. Another one right now is you are observing that I'm talking to you because you can hear me talking to you, but you can't see me. So your observation is that Mrs. Smith is talking, and your inference is that it is actually me because you can't see me, you can only hear me. So your observation again, you can hear me. Your inference is that it's Mrs. Smith. Okay? Pause this slide. This is your last slide. Write down your notes, and I will see you in class. Let me know if you have any questions about anything. We'll be working all this stuff next week more in depth.